Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. It has been a minute, y'all. I made my episodes in January and February. I had pre-recorded some episodes because I was going to New York City to get married. I went to New York, I got married. I ended up deleting the pre-recorded episodes because I decided that I didn't like them. And then COVID happened and I just never got a chance. I work in retail at a grocery store, in a kitchen, and it's constantly busy. We can't keep food on the shelves. So I've just been exhausted, and on my days off, all I've been doing is just sleeping. But I finally felt a little spark to get back in the podcast. I went back and listened to my old episodes, and I remembered how much I loved doing this. And the episode I had planned on doing when I came back from my vacation was about John F. Kennedy. I am obsessed with the John F. Kennedy case. It scares me. It scares me a lot. One of the things I like so much about the John F. Kennedy case is that it's one of the most believed conspiracy theories in the United States. When they poll people in the United States and they say, like, oh, out of all conspiracy theories, like, which one do you think is the most real? If I remember right, Bigfoot is like number 2 or 3, but John F. Kennedy, it's believed by all, I think it was like 90%. I couldn't find the exact article that I saw this in. This was a long time ago I read this, but it was like 90 or like 85% or something crazy, a crazy number of people. Everybody knows that there's just something about the case that just doesn't make any sense. So today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about JFK. We're going to talk about Lee Harvey Oswald. And I would love to eventually talk about the Kennedy curse and RFK and Marilyn Monroe, and just there is so much information here, and I just can't get it all across to you in this podcast, or else we'd be here for hours. My intro is already almost 3 minutes long. So we're going to get into it. I hope you're ready. All right, so let's get right on into it. So John F. Kennedy was born May 29th, 1917, to Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy and Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. He had 3 brothers and 5 sisters, and he was born in Brookline, Massachusetts. He was a really unhealthy kid. He was constantly sick. He had whooping cough, measles, chicken pox. When he was 3, he got scarlet fever, and they thought that he wouldn't make it. He was constantly sick, and he was just a really sickly kid. That's all there was to it. And they didn't think he was going to make it, but he did. And he went to school and he did all these great things. So he ended up graduating high school. He went on to Harvard, and he wrote his thesis on why Great Britain was unprepared for a war with Germany. It's very interesting. And he graduated from Harvard. And after that, he went into the military. He joined the Navy. Then he left the Navy and he ran for president. I'm sure there was some stuff in between that, but that's really what's important. He's in the Navy. He ran for president. And a lot of people believe that the reason he ran for president is because he had the looks, man. He was attractive. Have you seen JFK? Have you seen his wife, Jackie Kennedy? Beautiful, beautiful people. So a lot of people believe that television, the new invention of television, not the invention, but TVs were becoming more common in people's homes. And rather than doing these debates on the radio, they were starting to do them on television. It gave him this edge over Nixon. Nixon was this little, frail, gray looking man. He had this ill-fitted suit. He had makeup on. He didn't have the looks that JFK had. JFK was handsome. He had the ladies, he was the guy. And he won. He won the presidency. He became the 35th president of the United States. And people loved him for a lot of reasons. He was the people's president. People loved and adored John F. Kennedy. There's a lot going on with his life, with Marilyn Monroe and with his family. And I'm sure you've heard all of that. We're not getting into that today. I could be here for hours talking about the Kennedy family, but that's not what we're doing today. What we are doing today is we're talking about November 21st, 1963. That was the day that Kennedy flew to Texas to give a bunch of speeches. And that was the day John F. Kennedy was killed. So JFK is in Texas now, right? And he is in a car, in a parade in the motorcade. And there are some shots fired, and JFK is killed. It's just a horrific scene. If you've ever seen the video of it, Jackie Kennedy is there and she's crying and people are screaming, and it's just like, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to watch. That video is called the Zapruder film. It was filmed by Abraham Zapruder, and he was just filming the parade by coincidence and managed to catch the assassination on tape. Back then, obviously, there weren't cell phones. It's not like everybody was making it, recording it for Snapchat or anything. So he was filming this and just happened to catch the assassination on film. And it was believed that he was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. So we're going to talk a little bit about Lee Harvey Oswald. He was born in New Orleans, and he had a pretty normal life from what I've read. He went into the Marines, and he was a Marine. And then he kind of just randomly, I couldn't really understand why, he just decided that he was going to give up his US citizenship and move to the Soviet Union and become a Russian citizen. He just said that he just has made up his mind, and he just wanted to go and live in the Soviet Union. So he did for a while, and then he, meets this woman and he has a baby, and then he decides that he wants to come back to the US. He's quoted somewhere as saying there aren't any bowling alleys. There aren't any nightclubs. There's nowhere to spend my money. There's nothing to do. And he basically is just bored and tired of being in the Soviet Union and realizes he wants to come back to America. So they apply for him and his wife and their child, their daughter, to go back to the US. And he gets a job at the Texas School Book Depository, and he was there on the day of the assassination, and it's believed that he is the one who killed JFK. He's the one who is cited as killing JFK. He was arrested, and then he was actually shot by a man named Jack Ruby. It was broadcasted on live TV, and he died. But, there's a lot of things that kind of make sense that Lee Harvey Oswald would be the guy that would do this. He was in the Marines. He was a sharpshooter. He had this weapon, it was his weapon. He had tried to give up his American citizenship and then came back to the US. And he worked in this building. He was in the building that day. And so it kind of all just lines up that it would make sense that it was Lee Harvey Oswald. But obviously, a lot of people don't believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald, and we're gonna get into that. So a lot of people kind of question the judgment of the Secret Service and the CIA and the FBI in all of this. So first off, the Secret Service, being who they are and being how great they are at their jobs, they decided the morning of the parade that there were too many windows on the parade route for them to investigate all of them. So instead of investigating all of them, they decided to investigate none of them. Makes perfect sense, I guess. Also, the FBI was watching Lee Harvey Oswald. They thought it was weird that this guy tried to renounce his American citizenship to Russia and then moved back. So the FBI is watching Lee Harvey Oswald and doesn't tell the Secret Service, which is weird because the Secret Service is saying oh, we're going to Dallas. And they didn't mention hey, there's this kind of weird guy who was in the Soviet Union and came back, who lives in Dallas. Like, maybe watch out for him. And he works in the building on the parade route. Like, take that into consideration. Like, nobody said anything. It's kind of weird. But now, in return for the FBI not telling the Secret Service that Lee Harvey Oswald was like a sketchy guy, the Secret Service went ahead and didn't tell the FBI the parade route. So, everybody was really making sure their jobs were being thoroughly taken care of that day. But back to Lee Harvey Oswald, we'll talk about him a little bit. So people think that Lee Harvey Oswald couldn't have done this, or that he couldn't have done it alone. It's cited that JFK was killed by one gunman with 3 bullets, and there's some sketchy stuff going on there. So they say that 3 bullets were fired. The first bullet misses. The second bullet is their magic bullet, and the third bullet is the one that kills JFK. The second bullet, let's talk about the magic bullet for a second. The magic bullet is just what it sounds like. It's magic. It went into JFK, came out of JFK, goes through Connolly, and comes back out completely intact. It is magic. The craftsmanship, supposedly, on this bullet is phenomenal. I don't know what we're doing here with this bullet, but it's great. I don't mean to like make jokes and make light of like a horrible situation, but it's just like, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. The magic bullet does not make sense. Also, they said that there were 3 bullets fired, but with the gun that Lee Harvey Oswald had, it doesn't make sense that he could have just 1, 2, 3, and it had to be 6.3 seconds. He would have had to fire those 3 bullets. And this was a very low quality gun from what I understand. To the power, the strength, and the speed, it wouldn't have made sense. They've tried to recreate this. They just can't do it. It's just not really possible that in 6.3 seconds, Lee Harvey Oswald could have done that alone. And a lot of people believe that the trajectory doesn't even make sense, that from the floor that they say that he was on, the angle that he would have shot at, it doesn't make sense that JFK could have been shot at that angle. It just doesn't really add up. It's weird. So a lot of people believe that there would have been multiple shooters. So the U.S. government sets up an assassination team, basically, to investigate the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. That was the whole job of this committee. And this committee actually found that the CIA was planning to assassinate Castro, but they withheld this information from the committee. So we already know that the CIA was like hiding a lot of stuff from them. And the committee even cited that they believed that there was conspiracy, but they couldn't identify another gunman. So it kind of just all ends up falling back on Lee Harvey Oswald, just because they can't figure out who else would have done it. It's all just a really weird situation, and everything just doesn't add up, right? So Lee Harvey Oswald, whether he did it or not, that's kind of weird. And the magic bullet, it doesn't make sense. And the trajectory and the gun and the timing, it just doesn't work out. But the CIA says that it worked out and it was perfect. I don't know, to me, and I know that this is a conspiracy theory, and I know that I said that this is, one of the most believed conspiracy theories, but it just doesn't seem right to me. It just doesn't really make sense to me how all of this just adds up like this. It just all seems a little sketchy. So what we're going to consider now is, if there is 2 gunmen, if there is something else going on here, here's some of the evidence that there could be something else going on here. So one of the first issues here is that in more modern times, they've taken this video and they've analyzed it. And the audio in the video actually shows that there could be up to 6 bullets fired, even though the CIA cites that there were only 3. There was also a video of another angle that wasn't the Zapruder film. And that video was viewed by the Committee for Assassinations and then magically disappeared after. The U.S. government was actually sued for this video, but I'm pretty sure they won. The U.S. government won. They didn't have to give the video out. But they say that in this video, you can see out on the grassy knoll. I'm sure everyone's heard about the grassy knoll. There's smoke. They see another shooter. And but we don't get to see this footage. It's just gone. People even heard like an echo, and that it's cited that this echo is because of the grassy knoll and the echo and the it's complicated. Basically, the way I see it, maybe this sounds horrible, but the way I see it is the CIA was just like, yep, everything's perfect. The timing is perfect. The grassy knoll echoes just right. And the wind is what made the gunpowder go into the grassy knoll, and everything's perfect. I feel like I sound like that one comedian right now. What is that comedian's name? He did a whole bit on the JFK and the grassy knoll. That's kind of who I feel like right now. And I agree. I had to go look it up. I just watched it. The comedian, his name is Bill Hicks. And if you've ever wondered where I get my sense of humor, 100% it's Bill Hicks. Go watch it. Hilarious. But anyway, what was I talking about? I don't even remember at this point. So, yeah, they say that in the grassy knoll, people saw smoke and another shooter, but the footage is just gone. And something suspicious about the grassy knoll is the umbrella man. The umbrella man. So there's a guy in the video who's standing in the crowd with an umbrella. And some people believe that the CIA actually had a weapon that looked like an umbrella. And there's a guy named Charles Sensini, and he says that he knows that this weapon does exist because he is the one that designed it. And that the umbrella silently fires darts when it's opened. And in the video, you can see that before JFK arrives, the umbrella is closed, and after JFK has already been assassinated, the umbrella is closed again. The umbrella is only opened at the time that JFK is present. And the first bullet hits JFK right as he's passing the umbrella man. And people really think that this could be what really killed JFK, is this CIA weapon of the umbrella gun. But they interviewed this guy named Louis Stephen Witt, and they said that he is the one that was holding the umbrella. They interviewed him actually 15 years after the assassination. They wouldn't look into it sooner. And he said that he was there not to murder the president, but just to heckle with him. He was protesting the Kennedy family for appeasing Adolf Hitler before World War II. It actually was pretty common, and there's a lot of times in history where people have used black umbrellas as protests. I was reading something that Nixon actually banned his aides from having umbrellas in fear that people would see it as a symbol of protest against him. So this is like a common thing of people using umbrellas in protest, but a lot of people believe that this was actually a gun, which is pretty crazy. Here's something else that's interesting. This was kind of disproven, but I thought I'd talk about it anyway, because when I heard it, I was like, what? So there's a woman named Madeline Brown, and she claims that she slept with LBJ. LBJ did not like JFK. They were not pals. LBJ had just lost control of Texas. And he's actually was one of the big reasons that JFK went to Dallas that day to give those speeches. And LBJ's right-hand man had actually been warned that the political climate in Dallas just was not safe for JFK to be in. And he feared for the president's life. He thought that something really bad could happen to him. And you know what LBJ did anyway? Insisted he went to Dallas. So JFK goes to Dallas, and the rest is history. But Madeline Brown says that she slept with LBJ, and she says that she was actually at a party with Nixon and LBJ, and also Hoover was there. And at the party, she says that LBJ whispered to her, "After tomorrow, those Kennedys will never embarrass me again. That's no threat. That's a promise." Weird, right? Like, what a cryptic thing to say to a woman you're sleeping with. Now, obviously, like, this could very well be false, and a lot of people think it is false, but like, what an idea that this could have been said, even if it's just a theory. But LBJ actually helped form the Warren Commission and was helping to form the committees that were investigating JFK's death, which could be kind of sketchy as well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, oh, I'm going to set up these committees in a way that they can't discover that I was the one that killed JFK. Um, who knows? A lot of opinions about LBJ in this whole situation. And yeah, weird situation with LBJ there. Another person, or well, a group that they think could have done it is Russia. And that kind of makes sense as well, thinking that Lee Harvey Oswald wanted to be Russian and he loved Russia before he went. He moved to the Soviet Union. He said that he loved it there and he wanted to live there forever and he didn't want to be a citizen. So it would kind of make sense if it was a weird thing where like he went there and then he was like, from the US and he was in the military and they had sent him back to help kill JFK. But somebody pointed this out and I kind of agree that he just kind of wasn't a guy that would make sense. You can really track it back to him, like, oh, we'll track it back to Lee Harvey Oswald. We'll track it back to his ties with the Soviet Union. We can blame Russia for the assassination. Like, that's going to start a whole world war. That's going to be a whole thing. The whole world's going to end. Like, we don't want any of that. I don't think Russia would do something like that. I don't think that's a Russia thing to do, to be honest. I think they know better. But that's still a theory. Another theory is that the mob did it. There were 3 different mob groups that claimed responsibility for the murder. JFK was actively working against organized crime, and it kind of angered the mob. The mob didn't really like JFK. They weren't buddies. So some people think that the mob could have been in on it. And actually, one of the I don't know exactly what his job was, but he was like one of the big guys, of the Chicago mafia. He was murdered pretty soon after JFK's assassination. And some people think it was like to keep him quiet, which is really interesting. Another theory is that Ted Cruz's dad did it. He was somehow connected to Lee Harvey Oswald. And, President Trump claimed that Ted Cruz's dad was like talking with Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination. And like Ted Cruz says that this is like ridiculous. And then there was like that theory that I think was a joke that like Ted Cruz like traveled back in time and murdered JFK. Maybe that was just like a weird thing I read on Tumblr once, but I definitely know that I read it. I think it was just a joke, but still, at this point, I believe that more than I believe that there was one shooter. So that's that's all I'm going to say in that category of Ted Cruz. So like a lot of my other podcasts I've made, in the end, we don't really have an answer. And we probably never will unless the CIA gets destroyed or something, which I don't see happening. We're just never going to know. And right now, all we can really accept is that Lee Harvey Oswald, was blamed for it. There are lots of theories. I think the Umbrella Man is actually such an interesting theory. And I would encourage you to really look into that one. The Ted Cruz theory is very funny. And, the Russia, the mob, lots of things going on there. And the truth is that we will never know. And, some of these theories, if you hadn't listened to this, you never would have known. So, it's just a crazy situation. And if you want to hear about like RFK or like Marilyn Monroe or like the Kennedy curse, like let me know. I don't know what next episode is going to be about. I don't know when next episode is coming, but I'm really glad that I'm back and making episodes. I think this episode was like a little short. But if I didn't limit myself to what I was going to talk about, I literally would have talked about this for hours. So it's just better this way. But let me know what you want to hear more about. Let me know if there's any, even if it's not JFK related, if there's any specific conspiracy theories or cases that you would like me to talk about. I love this stuff. That's why I made this podcast. That's why I share this information with you guys. I'm just so passionate about this stuff. And I'm really glad to be back doing the podcast again. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is staying safe with all of the COVID stuff. If you're in the US, I hope that you are staying safe. If you are out of the US, I still hope that you're staying safe, even if you're not in the US. What I was going to say is that if your country is not quarantined anymore, I hope that you are still remaining safe with the new lifting of the quarantine. I hope that everybody stays safe. I hope that everybody has a great day. I hope that if you are out of a job, that you at least got a little bit of entertainment from this for a couple of minutes. I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. It means a lot to me that I can start something like this. And, this time I'm going to keep going. I'm very excited. Even with COVID, I still can do this. So I'm excited. So, I'm just rambling now. I do this all the time. But thank you guys so much for listening. And come back next time to learn something you never would have known. Thank you again for making it to the end of the episode. If you want to follow my social medias, my Instagram is at Cass and Lane. This podcast Instagram is at You Never Would Have Known. And let me know what you want for next episode. And once I figure it out, I'll be giving little hints over there like I used to do. Very excited to get that started back up again. I missed you guys so much, and I'm so happy to be back.